This is the Lasgidi Farmer Podcast.
Okay, so my name is Michael Akinsete. I'm the co-founder and chief marketing officer at Ecotutu. Some people also call me the food systems guy, only because I basically speak to my passion for solving problems within the food system. Food system transformation is something that I consider a big deal. Food will never go out of fashion, right? And through my work, I found myself working at the intersection of food, infrastructure, marketing, and security. And applying food systems thinking to, developing the agri sector, it just coincided with the time. And I've always looked at it from an holistic point of view, right? As a planner, you cannot just build solutions in silos, right? You have to build sustainable solutions that look at the entire value chain, the entire system, right? And so I know that my company is primarily focused on cold chain solutions, but the thought for me is way beyond cold chain, but in how that can be a part of the solution to solving the problem of the entire system, right? And so, because I don't want people to box me into the cold storage guy, because my purview or my horizon is wider than that, and so I took on the moniker food systems guy, and it has taken a foothold because people call me that. To Ecotutu, what we do at Ecotutu, I like to describe Ecotutu as a cleantech cold chain infrastructure company, and we provide access to off-grid cooling solutions across the food value chain, whether to smallholder farmers, to aggregators, to food processors, until they get to the final consumer, right? We build solar-powered cold storage solutions. We facilitate logistics of food from the farm gate till it gets to the market or to wherever destination that the customer needs us to go to. A lot of my work sits at the intersection of agriculture, infrastructure, climate, and market access, like I said earlier. And so that's essentially what we are driving at Ecotutu using cold storage, cold chain. About trillions of naira in losses, 3.5 to 5 billion annually. It didn't just happen in 2025. That's the amount that has been recurring of losses that we record every year annually, right? So the time of harvest for tomato, for example, will always fall between the same time for farmers, and then everybody harvests and takes it to the market. Now, if you go to a market like Mile 12, what is rife there is the market determines the price. Who have put in input, all of those things will sell. And if they have multiple produce coming in at this, they then hold the power to say there's surplus in the market, so they can be what they probably have pre-agreed with you before you brought your product, right? And this is the fate of many producers, not being able to maximize profit on their harvest. For aggregators, it means buying produce and watching part of that capital rot away because of the same issue, right? You don't have storage, the market is ripe, so you either sell at less the price after losing more than 40% on the road. Because think about it, you have trucks will break down on the road sometimes. The way the food is packed, raffia baskets, clamped up upon each other, you still have a lot of the produce getting injured. And so when that happens, these aggregators or these people who sell the produce will still they would add that loss as a price for for the customer. For the average household, it shows up in the higher food price, the price that you as a consumer then have to pay to buy food. When half a basket of tomatoes gets damaged before reaching Lagos, right? The cost of that loss, like I said, does not disappear. It gets transferred into the price of the tomatoes that's. So let's use tomatoes, right? I was driving to work during the week and I saw a very sorry sight. I posted about it on LinkedIn. Um, saw a van like a Sienna, and it was full of raffia baskets of tomatoes. To the top, the roof of it, they couldn't even close the boot, and the baskets were full to the brim, and they were stacked on top of each other. And they now still use rubber band, that black rubber thing, to tie it. So it was, and the fumes from the vehicle, then it was just it was an eyesore, right? Now that sort of journey, right? Say a farmer harvests tomatoes in Kano, often in rural communities, they typically will not have a reliable power supply, right? They typically do not have cold room. I mean, in Nigeria, we have a 96% gap for cold chain infrastructure, for the needed cold chain infrastructure. So we only have about 4% of what is needed. So you can imagine that majorly almost every producing area in Nigeria does not have the needed infrastructure for preservation, right? Now, no cold room, limited access to proper packaging because they still use a lot of raffia baskets. There's been a lot, and some people have started to adopt it. I mean, if you come to Mount 12, you find a lot of crates there. You find so, and like I always say, we're making some progress, but the what's the word? Is very the speed needs to increase. Right now, these tomatoes are packed quickly using this raffia basket or even sometimes sacks, right? And then they are moved in open trucks with it. I wish I could show you a picture. Do you know that in Nigeria we move tomatoes in raffia baskets and then they will tie this raffia basket to fuel tankers? Fuel tankers, like they will tie baskets of tomato, they put them on top of fuel tankers, especially during droughts. And if you Google, you check this, you see these things. They would then move that in those conditions across from the north to the south. This journey sometimes takes 2 to 3 days. In some cases, they will have breakdowns, right? In situations where they do not use tanker trucks, they will use normal open trucks. And when they have breakdowns, these trucks can sometimes stay on the road 2 3 days. We all know the shelf life of tomato, right? The sun is beating it, something that was not even properly handled during harvest. So you already have injured tomatoes mixed with, I'm going into granular details, mixed with fresh ones, and the injured, while they are there, with the effect of the temperature of the sun and everything on them, they are going bad. By the time you get to the market, right, they come to aggregation point, let's say like Mount 12, right? Then finally to the retailers, then to the consumers. At every point in this journey, it is doing damage. The way they are handled matters. The container, whether it's raffia basket, sacks, or crates, they're also having their effect, right? If there is delay in transport, the losses increases because the journey that's supposed to take 2 days now extends to maybe 5 7 days, right? If the vehicle breaks down, losses increases. If the produce gets to the market during a glut, like I said, we all know the seasons. We know the seasons for agbalumo. We know the seasons for mango. We know the season. So everybody that grows all of this produce, grow them at the same time, harvest at the same time. So all these things come to the market at the same time. So it creates a glut. Now, if there is glut, right, the farmer will be forced to sell cheaply because there is no storage option. Now, in a situation where there is a storage option for them, you get to the market during a glut, and your produce spent the normal time that it was supposed to spend on the road, no delay, you have packaged it well, you just take it to a cold room. If that infrastructure exists, you keep it there. When the glut is over and prices return to normal, you bring your own out and you sell, and you can make what you're supposed to make. You maximize the harvest, right? If your cold chain had not been broken from time, it's easier, right? So the farmers are forced to sell cheaply because, of course, there's no storage. If it rains or the produce is badly stacked, all of these things, losses happen again, right? Now, leafy vegetables, I've spoken about tomato. Leafy vegetables are even more sensitive, right? They begin to lose. I mean, if you buy, say, tete or shoko today and you just leave it on your kitchen cabinet, by the next morning, you know how it will start to look. And Yoruba will say, "It's in raw," right? Some people try to salvage it by putting it on the roofs overnight so that dew can fall on it, just so that they can retain that freshness. The system is not temperature controlled from farm to market. That is the typical journey of our food, of our fresh produce. There is always typically limited power, right? Refrigerated transport is expensive. If you want to rent a cold room now, I mean, I do it, right? It's one of the reasons why farmers or aggregators see cold chain as a nice to have, because they see it as an extra cost. They don't see it as a core value for them, which is something that we're also trying to educate them on, right? Most smallholder farmers cannot afford to buy their own cold room. So this is where shared off-grid cold chain infrastructure becomes very important, like the one that we deployed in Mount 12. To a large extent, people who use it, producers, aggregators who bring their product to store, have seen an increase of about 30-35% in their income over time, right? And this is what can be the norm for farmers, for producers, for aggregators within the value chain if cold chain becomes something backed by policy that is enforced by law and that food has to
Right,
go
you know,
through.
we know that electricity is basically a problem. It is erratic, it is poor, and even the alternative that we are looking at, diesel, petrol, you know, cold chain, right? So I'm trying to think, understand how the solar powered cold chain is more of a sustainable alternative to this. How do you think this has more advantages to the traditional cold storage system?
Question. Thank you so much. So, cold chain depends on power, right? From when we were young, cold rooms have been built since time immemorial. Even though the focus had largely been on fish, right? Back when we were young, they would say, "Oh, I lost Ile Eja, I felt better, I lost cold room." We typically know those places, at least where women who trade fish will go and pick up fish and stuff. And right? Maybe the application of them for vegetables and fruit and the likes is a bit nascent, but from when we were young, it existed. And one big factor in running a cold room business is power, it's energy, right? If power is unreliable, the cold room cannot maintain the right temperature. And once the temperature keeps fluctuating, the product quality will suffer, right? The point of having a cold room is to ensure a certain temperature that the produce will thrive at, right? In many parts of Nigeria, relying on grid electricity is risky. I mean, I don't want to speak too much on it. Collapse today, somersault tomorrow, all of those things, right? You may have long outages. There are days where some places, in fact, an area in Ondo State, Okitipupa, I think they just restored their power recently. I was there when they last had power in 2008. Imagine not having power since 2008 until 2025 when power was restored, right? And these areas are largely fishing areas, farming areas, and agriculture is their mainstay. So in places like that, you would need power to run cold rooms, right? Now, the traditional cold rooms that I spoke about earlier were typically run using diesel, petrol, fossil fuel. But diesel is expensive. We all know how much our petrol is now. We know how much diesel is now, right? It's expensive, it's noisy, it pollutes the environment, and you can't predict the cost. How much was diesel some months ago? How much is it now? How much was diesel 3-5 years ago? Right? The price has changed. Now, once you build cold chain around diesel, your operating cost becomes very high. Talking about pain point, when the operating cost is high, the price that you will then pass to the farmer becomes high because you are a business, right? That is why conventional cold storage is often too expensive for the people who need it the most, right? The challenge is not just building cold room. The real challenge is making it affordable to operate. So the very first pain point is cost, right? Now, our approach at Ecotutu to design cold storage around the reality of Nigeria, not it was to design around the reality of Nigeria. We've seen that two problems. There's lack of access to cold storage. There's lack of access to reliable power. What we then do is that we use solar and hybrid energy systems to keep up the cold rooms running, right? And that reduces dependence on the grid and reduces diesel consumption. Now, the advantage is that once the system is properly designed, like we do it, the energy cost becomes more predictable, right? So you are able to then, you know, what's the word? Manage your cost. That's the word, right? Using solar gives you cleaner power, right? You are using renewable energy. You are running on low cost, all right? Maybe the cost that you will incur is the initial cost of deployment. After that, operating cost is out of it, right? Or reduced to the barest minimum, right? Because energy is the major cost, and when you take that out of it, so and then in areas that are off grid, we all know that not every area in Nigeria is on the grid. There are some places. I mean, I just gave you an example. Since 2008, they didn't have power, and those ones they are even connected to the grid, though they just didn't have power. Coaching is not just about having a cold room, right? It's about maintaining the right conditions consistently. Tomato, for example, thrives at temperatures between 4 to 10, right? If it falls outside of that temperature, there's an issue. Compared to grid-dependent systems, right, it is more reliable, especially in a climate like Nigeria where we have unreliable power suppliers, still an issue in 2026. Let me walk you through our journey and how we also were able to get some footprint in the health sector. Right, when we started out, our focus was food, still is, right, primarily, and so 2019, 2020, and then COVID struck, and vaccines needed to be transported, right, and then we just thought, okay, there's a crisis. There's restricted movement. Cold rooms might not necessarily be viable at this point in terms of usage. How can we also, become relevant, be useful, provide solutions in this situation? Food is an essential commodity. It has to move. There are And so we developed small last mile delivery cooling solutions, right? The cooler bags and the ice cell. When we built that product, we built it primarily for food. Then a medical logistics company found us and then tested this product and then saw that it was viable for them to move vaccines. And that year they bought over 2,000 units of that bag. Something that we just thought, okay, how do we stay relevant during COVID? And that opened our eyes to, okay, so this thing is not just applicable to food, right? The principle is the same. Many products lose value or become unsafe when they are not stored or kept at the right temperature. They are called temperature sensitive items, right? Vaccine, some injections, all of these things are part of them. And so in agriculture, it may be tomato, vegetable, fish, meat. In healthcare, it's vaccines, it's medicines, it's test kits, it's so many other medical products. Now, what cold chain provides is controlled cooling, right? Especially when you then consider that there is remote monitoring involved. So the separate our range of products up to both the agri sector and the health sector. such that for health facilities, especially in rural areas, for example, last year in Mangu, Riyom, Shendam, Wase, and six local governments of Plateau State, we deployed 600% solar powered cold storage units to serve veterinary healthcare, so vaccines for livestock. It is both healthcare. In that situation, it is both healthcare and the food system, right? But beyond even animal care, it extends to human care because in a country where there is lack of electricity, where there is little or no access to cold storage, to be able to then have access to solar powered cooling to ensure that this very critical temperature sensitive materials that is critical to our health and even to our animal health is it's I mean, people in the medical sector will say it's a game changer for them, right? So if vaccines or medicines are exposed to the wrong temperature, they become ineffective, right? They also become unsafe. So the same cold chain thinking that helps farmers also strengthens healthcare access, right? That is strategically important because Nigeria's infrastructure gap affects many sectors at once.
Great to hear
It's
about
so great
the
to hear about the
adaptability of
adaptability
your
of your
organization,
organization,
being
being
able to
able to
recognize a pain point
recognize
and
a pain point and
rapidly deploy to
rapidly deploy
provide
to
proper and
provide
responsive
proper and
solution, right? It's
responsive
quite
solution,
important.
right?
And
It's quite
you know,
important.
es-
And
especially where we see,
especially where
the
we
food and
see,
health
the
sector
food and health sector
intersect for
intersect
Yes.
for
agriculture, like you've mentioned,
agriculture, like
passing
you've
to
mentioned,
quickly
passing
address
to quickly address
diseases that affect
diseases that
animals,
affect
poultry, ruminants
animals,
that spread
poultry,
to
ruminants that spread
humans as
to
well. The
humans as well.
zoonosis,
The
Mhm.
zoonosis,
bird flu,
Zoonotic,
right?
bird
So
flu,
zoonotics,
and
it's
all
yes.
that,
actually
right? So
important that you are
it's
Mhm.
taking
actually
this
important
great
that you are
strides.
taking this
So
great stride. So
I will want to
I want
um,
to
understand this your very
understand
important
this your very important
innovation. One of your
innovation.
services,
One
that's
of your
the
services,
pay
that's
as you
the
chill,
pay as you
right?
chill,
I know that
right? I,
that
I, I
is
know that
one
that
very
is one
important
very
service that you
important
leverage. So
service
I
that
want to
you
understand how
leverage.
does
So
it
I
work
want to
in
understand how does
practice,
it work in
and why do you
practice,
believe it is
and why
more
do you believe
accessible
it
and
is more
sustainable for
accessible and
smallholder
sustainable
farmers
for
and
smallholder farmers and
aggregators than the traditional
aggregators than the
buy and
traditional
own
buy
approach.
and
And
own
after
approach.
that, I
And
would like you to talk
after that, I
about
would like you to talk about
the ranges of solar
the
power
ranges of solar
cold
power
storage solutions that
cold
you have
storage
for
solutions that you have for us.
Pay as you chill was a model that we had to come up with, especially considering the costs. When we saw the cost of the solution, right? There are about 38 million smallholder farmers in Nigeria. Many of them, many of them live below the poverty line, which I am very ashamed to say, because farmers are supposed to be one of the richest people, some of the richest people in this country, right? Considering that they feed us, no farmer, no nation, right? So affordability became a thing. So it then dawned on us that, okay, how then can we provide access to these people? What if we made it cooling as a service? So we deploy these solutions at farm gates, at points of harvest, and at aggregation areas like major open markets, and then give access to people to store per crate per day. So they don't have to incur the cost of owning a cold room, especially if they do not even need to own it. I mean, if my farm is not a big farm, right, and say I only grow, I already have a steady market, I just need a buffer period to sell. Why as a farmer am I building a cold room, right? And then there are those who need it but cannot afford it. So 2 crates or 10 crates or 100 crates to the cold room, and then you pay per crate per day, make helping you gain access to the much needed solution without incurring the humongous cost of deploying it, of owning it, right? And so far it has been a game changer. It has helped to democratize access to this much needed solution. So for example, a tomato trader or a vegetable aggregator can bring produce into the cold room, store it for a few days, right? And based on the number of days and usage, right? They just pay based on that. Smallholder farmers, most informal traders cannot afford that cold storage, right? So we also offer different solutions about the range of solutions. So our cold rooms, we have a range of standard cold rooms. We have the 4 by 8 by 8, right? By 8 that in 1.5 to 2 tons of produce. We have the 8 by 8 by 8, which is about 3 tons to 3.5 tons. Right? We have the 12 by 8 by 8, which is a 5-ton cold room. We have, and it's a modular design such that as big efficiency, whatever the specification of the customer that is required or the need that is required, we can build according to those specifications. Beyond the cold rooms themselves, right? We also offer cold logistics. So we help aggregators, off-takers, farmers to move produce. For example, from Jos to Lagos, we help to move strawberries. From Kano to Lagos, we help to move tomatoes. For using cold trucks, right, and ensuring that the cold chain is not broken from the point of harvest till it gets to the market. And what has happened in that regard is many people who use our solution are able to maximize their profit, at least reduce the 45 or 50% that they would have lost to as little as 10 or 5%, or even zero in some cases, right? Um, we have the small products, the cooler bags and the ice cells that is applicable for traders, maybe people who sell parfait, people who do meat sharing, people who sell salad, people who just want to be able to carry their own small scale products from one place to the other, or even facilitate last mile delivery, right, into rural areas, whether for vaccines, whether for, so those are some of the other products that we have. Currently in the works is another service that we render is market linkage, right? For products that are stored with us, or for farmers that use our solution, we then link them up to higher value markets that we are privy to, that we have access to, right? So that's also a way to incentivize these off takers to bring their produce to us. Because when you know that when you store with Ecotutu can connect you to, for example, and I'm naming names, but not, I mean, I'm not saying that them exactly, but the likes of, say, maybe Kilimanjaro. Maybe we know a price pally that needs maybe 5 tons of tomato, and we have 5 tons of tomato stored somewhere in Sabongida in Nasarawa State. We are able to say, oh, Alaji or Alaja, price pally needs 5 tons of tomatoes. What you have stored with us, we can facilitate that sale, and we earn a commission off it. That reduces the stress of the farmer, right? And also ensures that he's able to sell his produce at a premium rather than, hustling and looking for who to sell to. So those are some of the things that we're doing. So with also the inventory management solution and the remote monitoring, what we're looking to do with that is to build market intelligence. So you're able to say, oh, this is this person who stored this part time. So traceability comes into play beyond building cold rooms. Because we're not in the business of cold rooms. We are enabling growth within the food system, right? By providing the much needed infrastructure and the interconnection that is required for food to move freely from the farm gate till it gets to the
I
table.
know something that I like about your approach is
I know
the
something that I like about your
broad
approach
range of
is the
services that you
diversity, the broad range of services
render
that you
enables
render that
inclusion,
enables
and also that you are
inclusion and
providing visibility for people that are on board your services, and linking them with
and
high
linking
paying
them
market,
with
this way improving
high
their
paying
income
market.
and also
This way,
bettering
improving
their
their income and also
livelihood.
bettering
This
their
is very, very nice, right? So
livelihood. This
I
is
just want you
very,
to
very
quickly
nice, right? So
paint
I just
a
want you
real
to quickly
success
paint
story.
a real
You've said
success
a
story.
lot about the
You've said
benefits
a
of
lot about the
your
benefits of
solution, but I just want you to
your
paint a real success
solution, but I
story
just
here.
want you to
How
paint
your
a real success story
solar
here.
cooling
How your
unit change the
solar
income,
cooling unit change the
reduces the
income,
losses, or
reduces the
transform the
losses, or
livelihood of a
transform the
farmer. It could be aggregator or small business, maybe in a state like Lagos State.
So since inception, right, we have. So I'm going to give a general overview, and then I would pinpoint one or two from different areas. Since inception, we have salvaged over 40,000 tons of food from going to waste. right? Across, and this is across 7 states in Nigeria. We have 26 deployments so far. Um, and the average increase in income for users of our solution is about 30-35%. Now, to give real scenarios, in Sabongida, Nasarawa State, our primary customers there are vegetable farmers as well as butchers. Now, after deploying and servicing the community for a while, say 6 months, we would then go back there, do a survey, right, to gather data and see, okay, how much impact are we having, and how can we do better? How can we serve them better? And on one of those trips, I had this gentleman who was a butcher tell me that is personally, now I said the average is about 30-35%, but his own income increased 60%, right? Just because he was able to access
Wow.
cold storage. Wow. Right? And when I go there, because it was a project that we had to, because before we deploy in any community, we have to go there, fraternize with them, get their buy-in. So essentially, that cold room is like, when we go to the community, it's like our code room. It's owned by the community in that sense, right? And they're happy to pay to use it. And if if anything happens, let me tell you how powerful it is. If anything happens there, like there's a fault or something, before the operator, who is a staff, reaches out, this guy will call me and say, it's like you want me to lose money. Your code room, something is wrong. That's for Idris in Sabongida. For Saidat in Mount 12. Saidat is a single mother of two. She's a widow, right? She sells tomato, she sells pepper, this regular pepper seller in the market, right? And just by being able to, after buying what she buys and she sells for the day and she's not able to finish selling, just by putting whatever she has left in the cold room, her own income has gone up by 30% because now she doesn't lose as much. She doesn't have as much esha. Even when others around her are selling esha, she is selling fresh and she's able to sell at premium value, right? So seeing those sort of impacts, right? There was a video where she's like, "Oh, what thing be oh, like we don't have to worry about loss anymore. Our money stays in our pockets because of this solution." Right? To say that, it's been a while since our kids have been sent home from school because she's now able to get more profit from her business. And that alone is something, it's real life impact as far as I'm concerned, and we're very proud of it.
Thank you, Michael, for that.
Thank you, Michael, for that. I'm happy about the story of the local sustainability. You're able to entrench belong in so that they see the solution as their.
Is one of the things that we try to establish, achieve in agricultural extension and rural development. Make sure that when we establish the project and we leave, when we establish, the people are able to maintain it, seeing it as their own. So this is the case happening here, and
Yes.
I'm happy to hear. About this. All this.
Building
the success story
all this,
and all I'm sure that
there must be some difficulties, challenges in maneuvering the
tell
want
us
you to
some of the odds that you
tell us
faced,
some of the
and
odds
the
that
biggest
you
challenges you
face,
face, and what practical lessons have you learned building this,
along the way, in
novel
building this
in Nigeria.
in Nigeria.
So, thank you. That's a great question. I mean, it's easy to talk about all the good things, but then there are serious issues, right? On the part of adoption, right, there is the mentality and mindset of these people, and that's what informed, even my campaign as the food systems guy, and all the work that we do in educating the target audience. Um, I always tell this story. You probably have heard it in some of my videos and stuff about a woman that we went to meet and said, "Oh, we have this solution for you. This is this. All you have to do is pay a token to use it." And then this woman said, I don't see this as an issue. Oh. Whatever God says I will make, I will make. So it's not today that I have been growing food, bringing it to the market to sell. I'll lose some, I'll win some. I know how to maneuver and make sure that I make ends meet, right? And there are a lot more of her out there who think room is just an added cost, is a nice to have. They don't want to store, they just want to sell, right? So there is the need to re-engineer mindsets. There is the need to educate and help them to see that there is value in that. So that's one of the challenges, and the lesson that we learned is that we then need to invest time, money, effort in educating these people, helping them see this value, and that. The second one is major finance, right? Um, we started out with cooling as a service because okay, this thing is expensive. The people who really need the solution cannot afford it, right? But even as a business, the investment that is needed to then deploy those sort of solutions is not readily available, right? As you can imagine, projects like that have a break-even period, the ROI period, all of those things, and it takes time. It requires patient capital. Now, in our climb, a lot of investment goes into businesses like fintech and stuff, and so access to capital to be able to expand footprint of that impactful work is one. Now, what we have done, the lesson we've learned there is we then also looked at the target market and identified in the space for whom, whether aggregator, processor, businesses, and then we start outrightly to them, right? Now, what then happens when we do this is they are able to leverage this outright sales deployment to then still give cooling as a service to those below the rung of the ladder, right? To say, oh, at times when business is not utilizing their cold room, farmer A, B, C, and D can have access to cooling as a service within that deployment, within that catchment area that it was deployed to. So embedding cooling as a service into outright sales is one of the ways, because of course, uh, cash flow is the lifeblood of a business, right? And as much as you want to make impact, you also want to ensure that you are sustainable, right? So those are the ways that we have. And then right now we are having conversations, with DFIs, with financial institutions, as to how we can then make finance accessible to be able to expand the footprint and impacts that we are currently having, especially in these rural areas at this farm gate, so that it then becomes easy for food. We are tackling waste, right? So the capital to do that is a challenge. Another thing that is a challenge is a very recent challenge is, okay, look at how global crisis is affecting our labor market, right? We we haven't been in the space for as long as we have. We then realize that okay, certain technology, the technology that can serve this market, that is efficient for this market, we would have to build it by ourselves. Then we have designed technology, gone ahead to, go and manufacture outside the country and ship it in. And since the war in Iran started, we have had to deal with shipping issues. During the FX issues back during the last election cycle, there was a lot of impact on us also because we had a component that we had to ship in, right? So FX shipping issues, that's another challenge. What we then try to do is we have now backward integrated to the point where up to 80% of the components that we need can be sourced locally, right? But the component that we still need to import, we then have to ensure that the timing and all of that is, well calculated to ensure that we can deliver on projects when we are due to deliver them. So the challenges are a lot. In fact, last year I convened a roundtable to be able to discuss, some of these challenges and how to go around them. So these are some of the things that we go through in trying to make this solution available. So far, so good. We've not had the issue of vandalism. I mean, how we are able to do that is because we get the buy-in of the community. They treat these solutions, especially as their own, and all that. So we have just have to learn as we build, as we go, and it's been an interesting journey, right? One with lessons, one with serious. Sometimes we're like, "Talura Wanshe, who sent us message?" Right? But here we are doing what we need to do and having the impact that is much needed within the space. I mean, I'm very grateful to the Consulate of the Netherlands for that recognition. It was a launch pad to great things, to be honest. And beyond even the awards, the support that institution actually shows to the food system in Nigeria in terms of advancing technology within the space, advancing clean technology within the space, increasing productivity within the space is I dare say second to none, right? In terms of the impact of the award for me, right? First of all, I thought of it as a call out. Beyond it being an honor, I thought it was a call out. It was oh yeah, we have given you the gauntlet. Go and do you need to do more. So I saw it as a call out to do more, and that's why after the award, I intensified on preaching the gospel of post harvest management, clean post harvest management within the sector and the transformation of the food system. Now, awards like that, many times, for somebody who works in the social entrepreneurship space, working on impact, many times it can feel like you are not appreciated, right? It can feel like what you are doing is going unnoticed. So systems like that, platforms like that, help you to know that, okay, what you're doing actually, has value beyond, being on the field and doing the work. People see it. It's being recognized. That's one. And that alone is an incentive because it inspires other people to also want to do the same. It inspires innovation. I mean, Michael Akinsete is doing this. This is what he's doing. He's gotten an award. How can I also solve a problem within the space, to get this sort of recognition? So there's that bit. There's also the fact that the work, like I said, that the Netherlands consulate through the IFDC programs, onto Nigeria, soil health, and all of those things. Other institutions like IITA and co doing in Nigeria, NISPRI, it is very, very critical if we are going to attain food security, if we are going to attain food sovereignty, which is very, because there's the difference between security and sovereignty. Security is there is food available. Sovereignty is that we own and produce our own food, right? If we are going to attain that, these organizations like this and recognizing work such as the ones that we do and many others out there, it's very important to continue to inspire us to do more, right? To reach even higher impact within the space. And I'm not gonna lie, operating on a level, getting that award essentially pushed me further and got me to do even more. Brought me into rooms that I had not been in before, right? Or if I were on my way there, it got me there faster, that sort of thing. So it had huge impact on our journey. So ensuring that mechanisms or models, financing models that make it easy to adopt this solution. It could be grant, it could be low interest rates, low interest loans, it could be guarantees, right? Or result based financing. It could be blended finance, right? Uh, Linking the right type of finance to the right type of business model. All of these things very important. Another kind of policy support or partnership that is needed is with state government, right? market associations, farmer cooperatives, communities, renewable energy companies, private investors, all of these people, we need to come together and invest time, energy, finance for communities. We need to look at, dealing with entrenched mentalities that sees cold room as a cost rather than an investment, right? We need to look at how to make patient capital available. We need to look at creating an enabling environment for these solutions, right? We need to get buy-in on how what they produce will be preserved. If you are investing in fertilizer, investing in seeds, investing in mechanization, then invest in preservation. Because if you are investing in production, it's like without taking care of, it's like you're feeding somebody that has diarrhea. Is eating and stooling at the same time. It's waste, right? So as much as yes, we need to ramp up production, what we are currently producing, there needs to be a lot of investment in ensuring that it is maximized. So as far as I'm concerned, production without preservation is incomplete. And every stakeholder, from government to private sector to DFIs to financial institutions to even the farming communities, board, collaboration across board is very sacrosanct.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So we have got just two questions left. Looking at the future outlook and call to action, right? You've done very fantastic today. I'm very proud of you. You've done fantastic in communicating the vision and mission of your organization, the journey and how resilience from over time, incorporating adaptive strategies, to provide more responsive, tailored solutions, right? So let's look ahead. I like to ask you if everything goes well and we
everything goes well,
provide the
we
political support and
provide the political support and the
participation and
encourage
all that. How do you
private
see
participation
off-grid
and all that.
solar
How do you
cooling
see
technology
off-grid
contribute
solar
to a
cooling
more
technology
resilient
contribute
food system
to a
in
more
Nigeria,
resilient
reducing
food
our
system in Nigeria?
huge
Reducing our
post-harvest losses, fighting hunger
huge post-harvest losses,
malnutrition,
fighting
and
hunger,
supporting sustainable
malnutrition,
agriculture in the
and
face of
supporting
climate change.
sustainable agriculture in the face of climate change.
I think that that's a brilliant question. I think that off-grid cooling can become the backbone infrastructure for our food system, right? Um, when let me go to the Bible. In Egypt, when Pharaoh had that dream, and then Joseph interpreted it, and he said, "Oh, there will be 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine," and then he then gave them how to prepare and how to mitigate the effect of the famine. The thing that he said was, let's build storage, right? Let's preserve this bountiful harvest. Preservation is always going to be the key. Whatever you produce that you do not preserve is waste, right? So I think that to make our food system more resilient, especially considering that we don't have adequate grid power. So investing in solar powered solutions, investing in renewable energy solutions is the way to go, and it will help reduce post harvest losses significantly. It will help farmers and traders to earn more. It will improve the availability of fresh and nutritious food. It will reduce the pressure to sell immediately, right? It will give players within this sector buffer, much needed buffer. It will support food safety because it's not exposed to sun, it's not exposed to dust, it is stored in the right temperature, in the right condition, within safe environment. And because energies, it also contributes to climate resilience. So the fact that we are using the sun as a source of power to power it is one thing. We're not using carbon fuel, we're not using all of that. Then the fact that we are stopping food from going to waste and ending up in landfills, stopping methane emissions in the atmosphere is critical for climate resilience. Lagos logistics, food logistics hub in Ekpe, and all the mid-level markets that they are building across. You see a government that is intentional about the food system, about how food moves, about preserving and maximizing harvest, right? So in the future, I see cold storage as a mainstay. In fact, it becomes a situation where if you are a producer of fresh produce and your produce does not go through cooling, does not go through cold chain, it becomes the inferior product in the market. And then it's not now a situation where, oh, we don't have this infrastructure. It's a I am the producer that refuses to use it, or uh, that refuses to adopt it despite it being available.
So I proceed to the final question, but thank you so much for um, that answer to that question, and also using the analogy of Egypt, Pharaoh, and David. And I think it's very important for us to think about it as well in relation to that time, especially what we are facing now, climate change, the war in the Middle East, fertilizer, food supply chain, and all, right, and all the insecurity in the nation, both affecting availability and food affordability, right?
Practical
Would you give,
advice
to smallholder
to
farmers and
smallholder farmers
aggregators
and
want to
aggregators
reduce
want to
losses right
reduce
now?
losses
And
right now.
I've been
And
following you.
I've been
You
following
write,
you.
you
You
share
write, you
ideas. You
share
do not
ideas. You do not
mice. You're not,
mice. You're
selfish
not,
about
selfish about
this whole idea. You
this
understand that it's
whole
a
idea. You
collaborative
understand that it's a
effort to
collaborative
addressing
effort
the
to addressing the
cold chain gap in
cold
Nigeria.
chain
So I
gap
would
in
like to
Nigeria. So
ask
I
you
would
that
like to ask
what
you that
advice would you
what
give to young
advice would you give
agri-tech
to young
entrepreneurs who
agri-tech
want to build
entrepreneurs who
similar
want to
climate
build
smart,
similar climate
affordable
smart,
solution? I'm not saying that you
affordable
should
solution? I'm
tell
not
us,
saying that you should tell us,
the recipe and
the
the secret of your
recipe
company,
and the
right?
secret
But
of your company, right? But
just advise them. Thank you.
just advise them. Thank you.
Okay, so two questions in one. You shall snuck it in. It's okay. No problem. um, so first, smallholder farmers and aggregators, I think that my advice would be start with the basics, right? Post-harvest losses do not start in the market. In fact, they do not start during transportation. They start at the point of harvest. And it starts with how you harvest, when you harvest, how you handle these products, right? It's important to harvest at the right time. It's important to handle produce gently. It's important to avoid throwing and overstacking, right? Instead of raffia baskets, use crates, right? And when you absolutely have to use crates. Don't fill these crates up such that you now have them pressed on each other. This is practical advice, right? No grand beyond technology, just the things that you can start to do at the point of harvest on the farm at the farm gate to ensure that you you already give your products a chance, right? Keep your products away from direct sun. I mean, it goes without saying. Salt when you harvest, don't just lump the ones that are injured with the ones that are good. You put everything at risk that way, right? So it does not affect the rest. Take the injured one out. Move produce as quickly as possible. I always say that agriculture is demand led. So if you are growing anything, right, make sure that you already have a market that you are serving. It's very important. That way, by the time you are harvesting, you already have mechanisms in place to ensure that what you harvested moves as quickly as possible. I know it's easier said than done. I know a lot of investment is, but it is important because you are doing business, think sustainably. You have think sustainability. Move as quickly and as carefully as possible. If cold storage is available near you, please, it's not a nice to have. Use it. Use it. Buy yourself time, especially during glut period. You can when prices are low, you can always go back there because if you have done all the things that I've said prior, harvested carefully, handled gently, kept it away from heat as much as possible, pre-cooled it, right? You already have set yourself up for success when you now put such produce in a cold room. It will definitely last so that when you now can sell because the prices are now back to what they are supposed to be, that is favorable to you, you can bring them out and then sell, right? Also, I would say farmers and aggregators need to work together. There's a lot of talk about middlemen. Our market as it is, and this is not to advocate for middlemen, but the middlemen are more or less the lifelines for farmers, because it is mostly the middlemen, the aggregators that have access to the market. But it's important that they work together such that you're not trying to rip off the farmer, right? Because of course, once you buy from the farmer, the risk of loss transfers to you before you get to the market. But as much as possible, if there is a synergy in how they work together, it's easier to access storage, because you as the aggregator, you know where storage is, you know the right transport to use, and you know which market you want to go to, you know where the high value market is. So work together, or and then it's even when you work together, when say you form a farmer cooperative, you form a association, treat post harvest management. It's not an afterthought. The money is not made only when you grow. The money is made when you preserve quality and you sell well. It's not just kata quickly and then we just sell it off. No, give yourself. That's what cold storage is for you. Now, to answer the second question, which what advice would I give to young agri-tech people? When people come to me and they say they want to start something, or they want to, especially they want to start a business, my question is always, what problem have you identified that within your environment that you can solve and that plenty people can pay for? That's the key to starting a business, especially in an opportunity rife environment like Nigeria. There's a lot of opportunity in Nigeria, but you have to identify right viable opportunities that can scale. Right now, if you are now trying to do agri-tech solutions, I think you start with the problem. You see how my statement is, what's the problem? Because if it is just about technology, if it's just about building apps, you are you are not ready. The reason is the our market is not at that point where you just create an app and you plug it in. We are lacking critical infrastructure. There's a lot of market access problems. There's so many problems. So if you really want to get into agri-tech and become an entrepreneur in this space, go to the farms, go to the market, talk to the traders, understand how money moves within the ecosystem, understand where losses happen, understand who pays, who decides, understand what the behavior of the people is. I mean, in our conversation since, I'm sure that I've talked about the behavior of my target audience and what I have been doing to address that. A good solution, in this day and age, has to be climate smart. It has to be practical. It has to be affordable. It has to be relevant to the locals. Like I said, in the communities, even in Mile 12, our cold room is treated like their own, right? So they have to be invested in it emotionally, financially, and they have to have ownership. That feeling of ownership. It's not enough to just. It's not enough for the technology to work in theory. It must work with the Nigerian situation. I said we had to design a cooling unit that is friendly to the Nigerian context, right? So your solution has to work in this our environment of bad roads, our environment of weak power supply, our environment of informal market, our environment of tight margins, our environment of real and raw human behavior, right? You can't do it alone. You shouldn't build in silos. Find partnerships, build partnerships early. Food systems are very complex. It's not just one part. There are a lot of moving parts. You know, how do I put it? Complementary solution providers. And finally, Rome was not built in a day, right? Structure are not quick flip sectors. It's not fintech. Even fintech, my friends who do fintech they still have to build for a number of years before they hit it big, right? Because that's what a lot of young people are thinking. How can I eat it big? We're all in business to make money at the end of the day. But you have to be patient. Besides, you have to be patient. You have to be interested in building something that genuinely helps people to earn more, to lose less, and to operate better. And that is how you will get value.